All right, y'all, time to do my UFC 169 Barao versus Faber 2 picks. In case you haven't been paying attention, my picks for UFC 168 Silva versus Weidman 2. I went 5-0 on the main card, so I'm getting better at this, so it seems. Okay, main event. Renan Barao taking on Urijah Faber. Obviously, originally supposed to be Barao against Dominic Cruz, but Dominic Cruz decides to play out the fight because he has well, we don't you call it this term anymore, but wussy flu. So he's out of the contest. So we get a rematch of Faber against Barao. That was the main event for UFC 149, I think, in Calgary. God, that was an awful show. Well, anyway, we got their rematch. Faber, it kind of surprised me. I didn't know this until I looked at the actual data. Dude's been on a roll. He actually had 4 fights last year, and he won all of them. And of course, Barrera has just been slaying people as the interim champion for a couple of years now. So anyway, in this matchup, Barrera pretty much dominated Faber in their first fight. And I think Faber, he's probably a little bit better now, I think, than he was when he fought Barrera. But I'm still going to give the fight to Barrera for pretty obvious reasons. Faber, obviously, he is a really great striker, solid wrestler, good defense, great submissions. But I think Barrera, he's just better on the feet. He's a better defensive striker. Actually has a better takedown percentage and a better takedown defense than Faber. And I just think he's just overall more dangerous. I think it's going to probably play out a lot like the first fight. Probably not going to be a Fight of the Year nominee. Might be very slow to begin with, but I think Barrera's going to do what he normally does and just kind of keep him distant with the jab. Maybe throw in some kicks, and Faber's just going to get really disappointed. Doesn't anything for him. His takedowns won't work, and I think it's just going to be a pretty sloppy, uninteresting affair. Ultimately, I do think Faber, he will do a better showing than he did in the first fight. He might even win a round, but I just don't see this fight going any other way than Barrera winning by decision. Probably unanimous, but you never know with judges these days. Co-main event, actually the heavier championship bout, which is going on second, which is sort of unusual. Jose Aldo, long-term champion, taking on Ricardo Lamas. Lamas, he's won a lot of fights recently. He had that really impressive death punch against Eric Koch last year, I believe. It's been years since he fought. That's crazy. Jose Aldo, obviously, he's been doing what Jose Aldo does, kicking people really hard in the legs and punching them in the face till they pass out. In this fight, I don't know, Aldo, the thing about him is he's really good in counter-punching, and he's also a very sound defensive fighter. He doesn't fight crazy. He doesn't go in there and start swinging his limbs like an orangutan. He's very intelligent. He's very cerebral, and I think that confuses and throws off a lot of his opponents. Ricardo Lamas, I mean, he's a good fighter, but obviously he's explosive. That's his strongest suit. He's going to go in there and try to go for the knockout. What happens when he can't get it because Aldo is just too sneaky for him? Well, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup as well. I think Aldo is going to keep him at bay with the leg kicks and eventually set up for the takedowns in the second or third round. I don't really think this one's going to end up being a finished fight. I think Aldo's going to kind of hang in there and just tool him around and start taking Lamas down and kind of gas him out. So he'll end up winning by unanimous decision. So good night for the Brazilians already. Heavyweight matchup. This is the one where I'm really, really uncertain. You've got Frank Mir taking on Alistair Overeem. Both these guys need wins in the worst way possible. Frank Mir's lost 3 fights in a row. Overeem, after knocking out Lesnar, he's really sucked against Brown. He sucked against Verdum. Was it Verdum that he lost? No, it wasn't Verdum. It was, what's his name? Silva. Bigfoot. And, yeah, both these guys, they need a win bad. If Frank Mir loses, he might get cut. If Overeem loses, who knows? If it's bad enough, he might get cut. So, Bellator's game there, I guess. Well, anyway, in this matchup, Overeem, obviously, he's the better striker. Frank Mir, the better wrestler, has better submissions. Oh, man, I don't know. This is really hard to call. I think Overeem, he might be able to go for the knockout in the first round, but if it goes anything beyond that, I'm going to start tipping my hat towards Mir. Man, this is really up in the air. It's really hard to call. Mir hasn't had a win since he broke the arm of Nogueira. That's 2011. Overeem, as bad as he looked, he has shown some signs of life in his fights against Bigfoot Silva. So in this one, I want to go with over Reem, saving his career with a knockout over Frank Mir, round 1. Then after that, Mir retires and goes off into exile or doing commentary. I think there's a difference. Flyweight matchup, John Lineker against Ali Bogdanov. Bogdanov, he looked really good in that last fight he had. I think that was at the UFC 167, if I'm not mistaken. John Lineker, good matchup, but I'm going to go with Lineker. I just think he's more impressive with the defensive takedown stuff against Bogdanov. I think it's going to be a pretty uninteresting matchup that Lineker wins by decision. Jamie Varner taking on Abel Trujillo. This is going to be all sorts of Strikeforcey because you had Bobby Green originally, but he's out. So you got Varner stepping up the plate. And looking at the matchup here, I'm going to go with Varner. Maybe a miniature upset here. I think it has better defensive capabilities, a little bit better on the ground than Trujillo. So I'm going to go with Varner by second round submission. Yeah, I know, crazy. All right, as for the rest of the card, we got John McDassie taking on Alan Patrick. I'm going to go with McDassie. Chris Curiaso taking on Danny Martinez. I'm going to go with Martinez. Tom Watkins, Nick Cantone. I'm going with Cantone. Lightweight matchup, Kevin against Al Akienta. I'm going to go with Akienta. As far as preliminary stuff, Andy Enns taking on Clint Hester. Go with Hester. Tony Martin taking on Rashid Magnumdov. I'm going to go with Magnumdov. And our curtain jerker, Neil Magny against Gaston Umidov. I'm going to go with Gaston, just because I like his name better. So there you go, the first major UFC show of the year. Not really shaping up to be a great card, but you never know. It could be some interesting upsets, and you never know. Frank Mir might get knocked out, which is always worth watching. So there you go. That's my picks. Hopefully these shows are going to get better throughout the year, because if they don't, it's going to be a long year for fight fans.